أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين شفيع ذنوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا وحبيب قلوبنا أبي القاسم محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين وأصحابه المنتجبين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى قيام يوم الدين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي أما بعد السلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته أعظم الله أجورنا وأجوركم بمسابنا بأبي عبد الله الحسين عليه الصلاة والسلام. So we ask, well, what is the intention of God from the human community? If we are indeed from the same God, and if the light of God prevails upon our being, and it pervades all existence, and if we cannot help but emulate God, then that God cannot be restrictive if His light dwells in the existence in its entirety, and in particular in an existence in whom He takes great pride, the human being, then God's purpose cannot be limited to a few. We have been seeing over the past few days that the devotional practices of Islam are there to awaken the inner being to God, in a particular way to restrain the ego, to diminish or limit the body and mind connection in order to free the soul. And we look at other religions, they have similar devotional practices. Everybody is moving ultimately and inevitably to the same goal. Even those who deny belief in a theistic form of a God, they attest to the fact that there has to be a deeper meaning. Even the atheistic thinkers now, they are saying that every atom has a mind of its own. Consciousness pervades all things. There is a thinking being, something is going on. But for us, the people of religion, we ask, well, what is the end game as we talk about one of the most brilliant devotional practices instituted by Islam? What is the end game in the mind of God? God cannot be a factor of limitation. He cannot want divisions within the human community. He cannot want salvation of one as opposed to another. If the verse says, Ya ayyuhal insan innaka kadihun ila rabbika kadhan famulaqi, O human, you are being driven to your Lord in a way that you shall indeed meet with Him. The verse says, Ya ayyuhal insan, not Ya ayyuhal ladina amanu, or Ya ayyuhal muslimun. It says, Ya ayyuhal insan, O human, you are being driven to your Lord in a way that you shall indeed meet with Him. What is the vision of God from the creation of the human community? We have already stated that Allah says in the Quran, Ma khalqukum wala ba'athukum illa ka nafsin wahida. Neither is your creation, nor is your issuance, save like one soul. خَلَقَكُم مِّن نَفْسٍ وَاحِدَةٍ. He has created you from one soul. ثُمَّ جَعَلَ مِنْهَا زَوْجَهَا. Then He made its pair in order to divide that same soul over and over and over again until it arrives at 8 billion at this given time, at this point in time. But it's one soul spread across 8 billion people. It's the same light of God. It's one God. The soul is being driven back to God in a variety of different forms. What is the vision of God? It is here that we need to open our minds and think very accurately. Maybe we would do well to quote that verse as we go into and embark into this topic. هو الذي أرسل رسوله بالهدى ودين الحق ليظهره على الدين كله. He is the one who has sent His messenger with guidance and the rightful religion in order for it to prevail over all religion. God's vision from the human community is that humanity arrives at that pedestal of a God-centric vision. Humanity in its entirety is destined to arrive at that God-centric vision. If we now look at this and then we interpret the eschatological literature of the coming of the Mahdi Salamullah and Isa alayhi salatu wasalam, we will see a singularity of humanity, all acknowledging the goodness of the essential state of humanity, all tending towards godliness, whether they agree in the notion of the particular God supplied by their religion, or they agree in the broader understanding that God is the ultimate culmination of our human potential and humanity. That is the singular vision of God. And He has aptly displayed this. It is our failure of reading that is causing the problem. The vision of God is one that humanity becomes God-centric. Now, if you look at it, we are displaying the same godly gems through all of our cultures and religions. Through all of our endeavors, we are displaying the same thing. Think about it carefully. Whenever human is faced with a challenge and limitation, we overcome it, don't we? Instead of just praying to God, we have become the hand of God. We create light in the midst of darkness. We give cure to dispel sickness. We feed in order to dispel poverty. When we arrive at a more mature state, we talk about human rights. We say inalienable human rights. The human community is a noble existence. Nobody should be not only without their menial needs of food and shelter, but nobody should remain uneducated. Imagine from where to where we have come. Is this restricted to the religious community? No. This is godliness flowing within the ambit of humanity as humanity, whether they are black or white, rich or poor, male or female, Christians or Jews, theistic or atheistic. Accepting a God or denying a God, all of us are displaying the same godly spirit. All of us are converging towards our godliness. But the beautiful thing that is supposed to happen, according to the vision of God, as we will explain, is that this plurality, as it melts away in unity, the nuanced takes that they have will add to the greater charm. How? Think about this carefully. Human evolution is one evolution, one growth. Today, the words that I am speaking, they carry meanings that are as old as the language itself is. And it is as old as humanity is. Every era came and supplied meanings to these words that we are using today so effortlessly. With our speech, we are narrating the history of mankind in one shot. Every culture, every religion, every civilization has added to the language that humanity is reading today, that humanity is conversing with today. The very fact that we can translate one language into another and everybody else understands it in their language shows that nothing is alien to anybody. You might express something differently, but it has a parallel expression in another language. The sentiment is the same. It shows that we have shared the language and we have shared the meaning and the whole history of that meaning with each other already. Look at the civilizations. Whatever the Romans added to humanity, we are using today. Whatever the people in the Neolithic age added, we are using today. Whatever other people added, we are using today. Whatever the Arabs added, the Muslims added of the scientific method, it's become a part and parcel of our human formation and outlook today. Every culture, every language, every scientific technological advancement, all of it has culminated in a beautiful, glorious, united human outlook. Cures for cancers don't come out of thin air. Everybody puts a little bit into it until a fine mind comes and discovers the final cure. But that final cure is beholden to the whole scientific trend of humanity in discovering the medicinal properties and potencies of substances and how they act and react and interact. Look at astronomy. The history is as ancient as humanity. From the very first people, and then after that, who looked at the stars and wondered what they are and what is the place of the earth, to Aristotle, who talks about the centrality of earth, to other thinkers, to what we are today, where we are seeing that there are no permanent laws at all. Everything's in a state of flux. We today are very much mistaken in thinking we are individuals. Our journey is an integrated journey with humanity. Nothing of us is separated from humanity. Today, the favorite, I don't know if it is still the favorite, but a few years ago, the favorite food of Britain was chicken tikka curry. It wasn't chips anymore. Yeah? It wasn't fish and chips. We know this. How? The foods have exchanged. They have become integrated. The clothing has become integrated. Before you know it, there will be no gender distinction in the sharp distinction, in distinctive way that we understand today. As humanity progresses, there will be no question of inequality of rights. There will be no question of one man serving another man. Being a servant will be as frowned upon as slavery is frowned upon. This is the speed with which we are evolving. Now think about it. The moral language is the same. The technology is the same. The language is the same. Astronomy is the same. All knowledges are the same. Everybody has contributed and it's all integrated. What about spirituality? It's phenomenal. Even spirituality is integrated. We will see different people approaching their God differently, but arriving at that pedestal of inner godliness that is shared by one and all. And we see that when people arrive at that godliness, we see it and we appreciate it. The very fact that the Hindu community venerates Hussein ibn Ali shows that their inner spirituality recognizes the heightened state of Hussein ibn Ali's spirituality. It's amazing, even spirituality is shared. The vision of God is a universal vision for humanity. It's one humanity coming to the completion of its journey and standing at a pedestal that is glorious. When we look at the likes of the present Pope, we helplessly put aside the biases of Islam and anti-Islam. We say, this man truly is the father of mankind. It befits a man like this to be at the helm of the church, where we take pride in him. And people who arrive at that level should transcend religion altogether. I was talking with a Christian friend of mine who was between Christianity and Islam. And he said, the Pope should transcend Christianity. And I said, not only the Pope, every religious figure should transcend the limitations of religion. Because every religious figure is promoting God, the ultimate reality. God cannot be bound by a religion. The destiny of mankind transcends religion altogether. Why? Because religion is orientation towards godliness. Religion that we are practicing are forms. We need to transcend forms to arrive at the essence of religion, which is that godly orientation. Of necessity, every head of every religion should transcend the limitations of religion. Hussein ibn Ali was not limited at all. Salamullah alayhi, he was not limited. He has Wahab in his camp, who is a Christian, who doesn't understand Tawheed and Quran and Kalima. He doesn't understand it. You've read, we have heard, right, about Wahab. Wahab comes. His mother, Qamar, hastens Wahab to Imam Hussein. She says to Wahab, I want you to defend this man in his honor. But who is he? I don't know who he is. I just look at him and I recognize the truth inside him. That's all she understands. Wahab says, fine. He goes and he fights. Of course, we say he became a Muslim. It doesn't really make any difference if he became a Muslim or not. Wahab goes and fights. He dies for Imam Hussein. Imam Hussein did not have a problem with his Christianity and his Islam. The Blessed Prophet was transcending Islam altogether, the uppercase Islam. He forges a tie with the Abrahamic faiths on the basis of the worship of one God. He is not concerned about these religious distinctions that we have. These people transcend the limitations of religion and they are endowed with godliness and that God orientation. The problem is that religious people have forgotten religion. I'll tell you why. Can you read Salawat? Because a very arrogant thought came in mind. Salawat. It's because of our insecurities. We do not see that every aspect of human existence is shared throughout humanity. We don't see this when we come to religion. In religion, we become exclusivist. The ego, the demon prevails when it comes to religion. I am the only one who is better than all of you. If I wasn't, I would not be. Otherwise, I would not be following this religion of mine. The way I devote myself is the only way. But when it comes to foods, well, in your region, if you eat that food, it's perfectly fine. My food is not the best food for you. When food is concerned, nobody has a problem to admit to diversity and plurality. In fact, I can eat your food as well. Sometimes here at Al-Mahdi Institute, we have people from different faiths reading the scriptures. You take the labels off them, you will not be able to distinguish between the Christian, Jewish, Muslim, Buddhist, Sikh, Hindu scriptures. You will say, oh, they're all talking about the same human virtues. They're all talking about the spiritual God that we all want to belong with. We need to engage in these practices. But as people of religion, we become very arrogant. We become very exclusivist. I'm the only one who is right. That is nothing but the demon inside. That restrictive force and that arrogance and that I-ness and that want for identity. Imagine how phenomenal it would be if religions were to come together. And the religions were to share their notion of the origin, their notion of the end, their notion of a purposeful existence, their notion of human spirit, human soul, God, their notion of becoming God-like and godly. If the religions were to share what are virtues, you will see that Buddha says, speak the truth. Isa says, speak the truth. Musa says, speak the truth. Ram says, speak the truth. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, speak the truth. Guru Nanak says, speak the truth. The philosophers who are nothing to do with religion say, speak the truth. Immediately the humankind will awaken and say, it's the same human godly truth. Imagine how phenomenally they could contribute to that singular human godly religion, awakening the souls to that. Or are you saying that you want all your 7 children to succeed, but God wants the majority of His 8 billion people to die and only you succeed? Is that a judgment you're ready to make? A father secures salvation and success for all of his 10 children. But the Father of all fathers, who has created this parental love in your hearts, in our hearts, is ready to forego 6 billion people in the pits of hell to secure 2 billion, and from those 2 billion, 72 are going to hell. 72 sects are going to hell, and 1 sect is the proper one. And from that 1 sect, God knows how many are akhbari and how many are usuli, how many do taqlid and how many don't. So the parent of all parents ends up with 3 children in an infinite paradise. And the rest of them are burning in hell, calling out to him, oh God, are you not our parent? But the worldly parent, who has a ray of his parental love, wants the success of all of his 10 children. Is that how we are thinking? Does that make sense to anybody? It doesn't, right? Please do shake your heads or nod them or whatever. Salawat. So the failure is at the level of religion. Religion is messing things up, not religion, but our interpretation of religion. You see, when the Prophet came, he came to barbarians, monstrous people. These people were monstrous. He sees goodness inside them. Today's Christian will say that you can't have salvation until you go through Jesus. Today's Jew will say, we are the chosen ones. Today's Muslim will say, we have the final religion. And all of that in the name of God that is colorless, religionless. Can you not see this? There is a bit of a problem we have with religion. When it comes to religious thinking, the minds are suspended and we become arrogant. In every part of life, we want to think because it is our God-given right to think. When it comes to religion, the first thing that is suspended is the very agency that is there to bring us next to God. That's suspended altogether. It doesn't make sense. Well, it's religion. Think about this carefully. When we are investing in business, we make sure we study the whole business plan. When we are investing in an infinite life, we suspend our reason altogether. Does that make sense to anybody? It's not our fault. We are born, we are cultured, we are indoctrinated within the cradle. This indoctrination never goes away. The greatest idol to break is the idol erected in the name of religion and God Himself. Who worships God? There is no God to be found within religions. The only place that does not have God is religion. If there was God in religion, the religious people would become godly. Did you see that? They would not be cursing at each other. They would not be swearing at each other. They would not have time to hate each other. They would be busy in contributing positively to the welfare of the world. They would be busy in refining themselves to achieve their godly status. The only place where there is no God to be found is within religion, because of this arrogance that I am on the truth. The people who converted to Islam in the time of the Blessed Prophet, they were complacent due to this arrogance, that we are Muslims now, no harm can come to us. They were defeated at Uhud. Their complacency that we are Muslims, now God will help us. God says, I have no favored ones. تِلْكَ الْأَيَّامُ نُدَاوِلُهَا بَيْنَ النَّاسِ. I gave you victory in Badr, I gave them victory in Uhud. That's the way life is. You're not my favored ones or my chosen ones. If you can find yourself coming towards me through it all, then you're my chosen one. And how phenomenal is the attitude of the Blessed Prophet. The assassin of Hamza comes to the Prophet in Makkah. He said, do you have forgiveness for me in your heart? And I say, I accept Islam. The Prophet said, yes. But if you can, avoid me, because I will be reminded of my uncle Hamza. And it is unbearable for me. In his humanness, the Prophet admitted in his humanness that he wasn't able to tolerate being faced with the assassin of his dear uncle. But that is the religion of the Blessed Prophet. So the religions need to share. In our salah, which is the most phenomenal act as described by the Prophet, and we, whilst we are earthbound, we are committed to this salah, ruku and sujood and facing the Qibla 5 times a day. But if we were to look at the salah of the Jews, and we were to say, okay, what is the essence? It will bring the Jew and the Muslim together. What is missing in their salah of spirituality, we will supply. What is missing in our spirituality, they will supply. When we look at the Hindus and we talk about the fast, if we look at the form of the fast and we say, what is the essence in there? Why do you fast? What do you understand the fast as? What will happen is that spiritual essence of the fast will come to the fore, and we will begin to understand that the purpose of human being through the fast can be achieved in the best way possible by integrating all these beauties together. Human beings will always be pluralistic because we are bodily, we have different features, we have different tastes, different cultures. But we are forever exploring the commonalities in spite of this physical plurality. And we find it is that commonality that makes us one. At one point, Kachis and Kachiawaris never married each other, right? That's what I hear previously. Then it was the Khojas and the non-Khojas. Then it was the subcontinent people and the Iranians. But you are seeing it's all fading away. It is fading away in that commonality that is emerging. We are seeing that the cultures are changing. that a Shia from one side and the Shia from the other side can perfectly marry. This should be the truth, as it was initially that the Shia and the Sunni can marry as well. The very fact that the Quran is saying you can marry the women of the people of the book shows that the Quran didn't even distinguish in terms of religions. So now we come to the most prominent devotional act prescribed by Islam, the Hajj. Have you ever wondered about the verses of Hajj? It is not like we have understood at all. When it comes to the fast, the verses, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, O you who brings faith. When it comes to salah, O you who believe, aqimus salah, establish salah. When it comes to Hajj, it's amazing. The first verse of Hajj, not in the sequential Quran that we have today, but the first verse historically. وَأَذِّن فِي النَّاسِ بِالْحَجِّ. Ibrahim is being told, وَأَذِّن فِي النَّاسِ بِالْحَجِّ. O Ibrahim, call out amongst humanity for Hajj. يَأْتُوكَ رِجَالًا وَعَلَى كُلِّ ضَامِرٍ يَأْتِينَ مِنْ كُلِّ فَجٍّ عَمِيقٍ. They will come walking. They will come on every means of conveyance. They will come from the remotest parts of earth. Ibrahim was only one. This cry that Ibrahim gave for Hajj was for mankind in all regions of the earth, for all eras till the day of Qiyamah, towards the creation of that singular destiny of humanity. Now look at the verses of Hajj. In the Quran, when Hajj becomes obligatory, the verse says, وَلِلَّهِ عَلَى النَّاسِ. Allah has a right upon mankind, not upon the believers, not upon the Muslims. وَلِلَّهِ عَلَى النَّاسِ حِجُّ الْبَيْتِ. It is Allah's right upon mankind to perform the Hajj of the house, intention of the house. Why doesn't Allah restrict it to the Muslim? He doesn't. It's a pluralistic verse. Then there are 4 odd verses, I'm going to quote 2. Inna awwala bayt wudi'a lin-nas lalladhi bi Bakkah. The first house placed for mankind is the one in Bakkah. For mankind. Another verse, وَإِذْ جَعَلْنَا الْبَيْتَ مَثَابَةً لِلنَّاسِ وَأَمْنًا. And when we made the bayt, the house, a place of retreat and refuge for mankind. These 4 verses, and there are 2 more, all of them talk about Hajj, the obligation of Hajj, and the house of God for mankind in its entirety. It was nothing to do with the Muslim. It is amazing that our vision is so restricted that you go to Makkah and Medina, you find a sign, no Muslim allowed beyond this point. How did the Prophet, poor Prophet, take his Christian and Jewish wives there? We do know, right, that the Prophet had a Christian and Jewish wives. Were they told to stay outside Medina? They went inside with Medina. The verses of the Quran in Surah Baqarah commanded the Jews to establish Salah with the Prophet. He says to the Jews, you remain Jews, pray the Salah with the Prophet. It's the same worship that you both have. Pray it with the Prophet. The Jews would have no problem, according to this, to pray Salah with the Prophet, remaining Jews. In fact, the Jews used to say to the Prophet, what have you brought anyway that is so new? You're saying everything that we are saying anyway. And the Prophet says, مَا كُنْتُ بِدْءًا مِنَ الرُّسُلِ. I'm not the first of the prophets. It's the same message. Look at how we have become restricted. No Muslim beyond this point. Hajj is the eventual end of humanity. Now look at the beauty of Hajj, the symbolism entailed within Hajj. We go to Hajj, and of course we're going to speak about the beautiful spiritual sentiment in a little while. But we go to Hajj. You can't distinguish a master from a servant. You're not allowed to. In the sight of God, you are one. There is no problem with segregation of genders. God is saying you are above animal sense of sexuality here. You are in the essence of your being in front of me. There is no notion of you looking at a woman or a woman looking at you. You are beyond that. It is gesturing to the mind, open up. Open up. You are beyond the bodily. There is no white, there is no black, there is no man, there is no woman, there is no rich, there is no poor. There is nothing. There is no elderly, there is no middle-aged, there is no young, you're one. In order to awaken that inner being to the inner final destiny. That this is where you all belong. And the thing is, we have trivialized this particular ibadah of Hajj. We have actually trivialized it. We have made it so formalistic that we have forgotten that this has higher relevance. Why would God take us from everywhere in the world and bring us to Makkah just to go round and round? Why? Shouldn't there be some cosmic relevance to this? There are phenomenal truths abound that we have not awoken to yet. The future human will awaken to it. These are cosmic truths. Subhanalladhi asra bi'abdihi laylan min al-masjid al-haram ila al-masjid al-aqsa. Masjid al-haram and Masjid al-Aqsa are two existential points on the face of this earth that are connecting us with some higher reality. We need to understand this. And Allah says, Mubarakan wa hudan lil alamin. No, in another place it says, وَفِيهَا ayat, and there are signs in there. The scientific mind is supposed to reflect on those signs. What is going on? Look at how lazy we are as human beings. If you study the pyramids, you will know that the Egyptians have not made them. It predates the Egyptians. And it is made with such precision that it is impossible that the ancient human could have made this without any lofty instructions being given to them. If you look at the temples in India and the way they are aligned and the structures and the architecture, you will say human beings cannot do this of their own genius. They can't. There has to be some form of intervention. A story has been going on the face of this earth, and we have yet to awaken to it. These are things that are awakening us to this singular story that we need to understand what's going on. But when we come back to Hajj, we see that we get a vision of at least the Muslim community. When you go to Hajj, I know we people like to stay inside our hotels and pray Salah there. And we go to the roof of the Kaaba and we pray our du'as there. That is not the place to go and pray your everyday dua. That is the place to go and observe what is happening. 3 million Muslims representing immediately 2 billion people within the Ummah. See what this Ummah is all about and the identity of the Ummah. And see your greater identity and your greater belonging, so that when you come back from Hajj, you're liberated in your mind. You are no longer a Shia or a Sunni or a Wahhabi or a Sufi. You belong to the greater Islam of Muhammad Rasulullah. That is the first thing it's supposed to awaken us to. That a Wahhabi and a Shia and a Sufi and a Sunni and a Barelwi and a Deobandi, Hanafi, Maliki, they are all praying side by side. They're going around the house together, all saying Labbaik. Awaken to that religion of Islam, even if it is the uppercase Islam and the formalistic Islam. It is supposed to liberate the mind that I am not this small thing that I think I am. I am a part of 2 billion people. I am a great force. I can be something huge in this world. And together with these 2 billion people, I can make a difference for this world, can contribute positively. Anybody going to Hajj and comes back as restricted from Hajj has not performed Hajj. If we still have these biases against other Muslim sects, then that means we have not paid heed to Hajj at all. The sociological truths within Hajj are phenomenal. Just going to the roof of the Kaaba and observing the hundreds of thousands of souls rotating around the Kaaba and the color scheme that is there is better than maybe spending time in solitude there and doing zikr and dua. Let the minds be open and liberated that you are far bigger than the small being that you've made yourself in your very localized religion. It is supposed to be liberating. Now when we come to the symbolic aspects of Hajj, and I know my time is running away, to the symbolic aspect of Hajj, Look at the way they are. Look at the way they are constructed. They are phenomenal. The most symbolic of all devotions is Hajj. The first thing we are told is that when you intend Hajj, la rafasa, wala fusuqa, wala jidala fil Hajj. The verse does not say to any other muharramat. The verse only says these three harams. La rafas. Do not entertain thoughts of cohabitation with women, or any lust, or any attraction. That is what marks your core animality. The second prohibition is, do not boast and say, I am. Let the I go. La fusuka wala jidal. This quarreling, boasting, and I am, let the I fade away. To bring us to that state of awareness of where I am going. And the third one, do not take and utter the name of God in vain. The name of God is to be revered. Venerate the name of God. Wallah, billah, all these things that we say, don't. Revere God. When the name of God is called, tremble from within. Let the throne of the heart shake in awe of God. So these are the three things the verse tells us. Then we are told, now remove your ordinary garments. Symbolically, this means remove the veils of false personality that you have acquired through the bodily attachment and association. I am not, I'm going to say this, don't laugh. I am not a Khoja. I am not a male. I am not the son of so-and-so. I am not the billionaire. I am not the scholar. I am not the Hafiz al-Quran. Take it all off. Peel it away. Come to the real who you are. I am not a Muslim. I am not a Shia. Oh my God. What am I? This is what I'm here to discover. Strip away the false identity that you have acquired through being embodied. That is the biggest hell and the curse upon you. Why is Hajj wajib only once in a lifetime? Because once in a lifetime it is supposed to tear away at everything that is false. Once in a lifetime Hajj is enough. It is only when we have the luxury of doing it again and again that it loses its meaning. It's supposed to be once a lifetime endeavor for that transformative magic of Hajj to work upon us. Remove all layers of false personality. Stand naked in front of God. This, oh God, is what I am. As Hussein says, oh Allah, in Dua Arafah, all the good claims that I make for myself are all pretentious. Amazing, isn't it? Are all pretentious. I am the one whose good deeds are evil despite being good. He sees with that penetrative insight into the falsity of personality. So the first thing is, remove everything. Then go and have a shower. You know, we say to Allah, make this washing a means of purification. And at that point, we revere the water. These du'as ignite the mind that look, this water is no substance, lifeless substance that you think. It's a living being. It's a living being. Acknowledge it. Awaken to its life. Through its life, seek cure for your ailing body. Through its spirituality, seek purification for your soul. Oh Lord, purify me through this, the outer and the inner. It is a living being. Acknowledge the life of God that is abound, plentifully. Then we are told, wrap 2 garments around yourselves and thank Allah for these 2 garments through which He allows you to conceal your embarrassment. See these two garments as a blessing from God, for you do not deserve even this. Imagine after that how the mind has become awoken. That nothing is mine. It is God's. It is all borrowed. My attachment to it is a false attachment. It wasn't mine to keep. When it wasn't mine to keep, why have I formed this such an unbreaking attachment with it? Then once you've done this, then come to a point and cry out, Labbaik, Allahumma Labbaik. I am here, O Lord, I am here. This is the first awakening to God. Before this day, it was a pretentious actor that had been conducting the life, in the pretense of being male and female, rich and old, Shia and Sunni. You have torn it all away. This is the first time the real individual is crying out, I am here. Until this time, it was just a robot that was just conducting life. That is the point of the great awakening. This is the time where the individual steps into life. Before this, there was no life. It was a pretentious movie. When you first stand at that point, the Imam, when he says, Labbaik, he begins to tremble. Even the Salafi brothers quote this in their books when you go to Hajj, that Zainul Abidin used to tremble, Salamullah alayh. And they asked him, why do you tremble? He said, when I call out to God, oh God, I am here. What if God says, I do not accept you? And hence I tremble. Then he recites, oh Lord, I restrain my eyes and my ears and my thoughts from other than you. Let the falsity fade away from me. I won't have the time to finish this, so I'm going to quickly go through this. When we come to the house, I'm only talking not about the cosmic existential realities, because I don't know them. Going anti-clockwise, why? I don't know. But one of the things we observe is we go round. Undisturbed motion. This undisturbed motion to the masters signifies what? A state of detachment from other than God. As Shaykh Fadlullah has quoted in one of his books, qalb, the heart, comes from qalaba, to turn. The heart fails to turn when it becomes attached. As soon as it becomes attached, its rotation around its own axis becomes arrested. And it becomes overly involved. Moving around the house is symbolically detaching ourselves of inner attachments. Detaching from children, from brothers, from religion, from whatever it is we are attached to. But at that point, it's the detachment from the greatest idol. The greatest idol is God, in the name of God. The God that we are worshipping is not God. It's a construction of a concept of God through wishful thinking. Our God is like us. When I am unforgiving, my God is unforgiving for me. Because I am unforgiving, my God will not forgive anybody. Can you see that? When I am desirous of paradise, my God becomes the author of paradise. To break that idol that we have erected in the name of God. And to allow ourselves to be open to God and say to God, suggest yourself to me. I'm finishing here. The fact that we go to Hajj, the fact that when we stand under the golden pipe, And we say, oh Allah, give me wealth, give me health. They haven't smiled. They haven't say, He has given you all of that when you were at home. You have come with the intention of meeting with your God. You stand before Him and you're asking Him for health and wealth. Look at the state of sorrow. At this point, ask the beloved of His own self. Do you think that if you have God, you will miss out on anything? Do you think if God is the one who watches over you, that He will not plan for you what is better for you than you yourself can plan? Does that make sense to anybody? That if God takes my affairs into His own hands, do I need to tell God what to do for me? Or does He know best for me? Does that make sense? When we go and stand under the golden pipe and say to God, do this and do that, it shows that we are still very immature. The only thing we are supposed to do is, oh God, I am here. I hand myself over. Asking you is a sin. For asking you is undermining your ability to control me and doing that which is better for me. So after going around that house, we hand ourselves over to Allah and say, oh Lord, I wish to free myself by giving my discretion, handing it over to you. And this is what Hussein says, oh Allah, allow me not to yearn from you the hastening of a decree that you have chosen to delay, or the delay of a decree that you have chosen to hasten. And these are the godly souls with Hussein ibn Ali. En route to Kufa, Akbar is next to Hussein on his steed. They are slowly advancing. Hussein falls asleep upon his steed. He dozes. He awakens abruptly and he calls out, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Indeed, we are Allah's possession and to Him we return. Akbar looks at his father, oh father, what brings the kalimatul istirja to your lips? He says, oh child, I have seen an unsettling vision. As we are advancing towards Kufa, a caller calls out, O caravan of Hussein, advance towards your deaths. He said, O father, are we not upon the truth? Indeed, O child, we are upon the truth. He said, O father, then what difference does it make whether death comes upon us or we rush into the bosom of death? He looks at Akbar, admiring the iman of this youth. We hear about Akbar that Hussein would often feel the anguish of the loss of his grandfather. And he had made a prayer to Allah, O Allah, send me a child in whom I can observe your messenger. He was blessed with Akbar. He most resembled the messenger of God in his features. And he spoke like the messenger of God. And his gentle mannerism was the mannerism of the Blessed Prophet. They would all say, when we look at this youth, it is as if we are looking at the messenger of God. I hear this from the Dhakirin, that in Sham, when the women said to Yazid, allow us to mourn our dead, we have not been allowed to mourn them. They said, very well. Heads were being brought into the majlis of the women. They were all taking the head and lamenting and crying. At that point, a youthful head is brought. The women of Sham cried out, may his mother not be alive. Such was Akbar. Such was Akbar. I hear this from the Dhakirin as well, that Abbas and Akbar sit together on the night of Ashura. Abbas says, even though I am your master and the commander, but Akbar, I do not wish you to die before me. I fear for my brother. And Akbar looks at his uncle and says, oh uncle, never shall I allow that. You are the pillar of strength for my father. Such are these sentiments. The battle commences. The helpers of Hussein lose their lives. The champions of Hussein's army are still alive. Akbar, amongst the most renowned champion, remains. They decide to engage in single combat. Imam Hussein turns to Akbar. He says, oh child, I wish for you to be the first from me to give his life. Akbar says, oh father, you will find me obedient. Akbar, bid farewell to your mother and to your aunt and to your sisters. Some of the Makatil narrate that the cloth of the tent lifted and fell multiple times. Every time Akbar wished to come out of the tent, they would surround him. How does a mother look at her youthful son who comes to bid her farewell and give himself over to the merciless daggers and the arrows? His mother, with a heavy heart, his aunt, his sisters. He looks at them, pleads with them. Do not detain me here. My father needs me. Imam Hussein comes, assists Akbar. Hamid ibn Muslim says that Hussein looks at Akbar painfully. Looking at Akbar, his eyes tear. He raises two of his fingers towards the sky. He says, "O Allah, bear witness. Now I send to them a child of mine that resembles your messenger most in the way he looks, speaks, and in his manners. O Allah, forgive them not." He says, "Akbar, go. But go slowly. Do not hasten." Akbar rides away. As he is riding away, he hears something. He looks behind. He sees Hussein walking behind him with his hands upon his chest. He says, "O father, have you not bid me farewell?" "Indeed, O child." "Then, O father, what is this that I see?" He says, "O Akbar, had you a child like Akbar, you would not have asked this question of me." "O father, go back." Akbar advances. He recites poetry. "I am Akbar, Ali Akbar, the son of Hussein ibn Ali, the grandson of the Messenger of God. Face the wrath of a Hashemi who defends his father." Akbar puts all of them to death, whoever approaches him in single combat. They break the rule of single combat and surround Akbar. Akbar wards their blows off. As Akbar is fighting, we hear that Hussein's heart is filled with anguish. He goes to Akbar's mother. "Come with me. I shall make a dua, you say Ameen." Hussein says, "O Lord of Yaqub and Yusuf, as you caused Yusuf to come back to his Yaqub, cause my Akbar to come back to me once more." The mother of Akbar says, "Ameen." No sooner has this prayer been made that Akbar comes. He says, "Oh Father, the thirst kills me, and the coat of mail weighs me down. If only I could find a drop of water." Hussein looks at him. He says, "Oh Akbar, place my ring inside your mouth, and place your tongue in my mouth if you can find any cool." Akbar places his tongue in Hussein's mouth and retreats and says, "Oh Father, you are thirstier than I am." He says, "Akbar, take off your coat of mail, throw aside your shield, and go towards the battlefield. Your grandfather will come and quench your thirst." Akbar takes off his coat of mail, re-enters into the battlefield, engages in the battle. There is an enemy of God who says, "By Allah, I will cause such a wound upon the heart of this youth that his father will not be able to bear." As Akbar is fighting, a sword descends upon his blessed head. Akbar wraps his arms around the neck of the horse and refuses to fall. As they strike Akbar, his grip loosens. As he is about to descend, a spear embeds into his chest. Akbar collapses upon the dust of Karbala and calls out, "Oh Father, peace be with you." Hussein runs towards Akbar. He comes to Akbar and he says, "Oh child, how audacious these people are, that they have killed you in such a brutal manner." Hussein takes dust and scatters it upon his head and he says, "Oh child, this life is a darkened place without you." Hamid ibn Muslim says, "I saw a woman running to the battlefield crying out, 'Wa Akbara, Wa Akbara.' She fell at the body of Akbar. Hussein quickly takes her away from Akbar's body and directs her back into the tents. I asked, who was she? They said it was Zainab, the aunt of Akbar. Hussein comes to Akbar. Akbar rubs his heels upon the dust of Karbala. He says, "Oh father, this is my grandfather who is quenching my thirst and saying to me, tell your father to come to me, for I cannot withstand his separation." Hussein says, "Oh child, Allah has taken you away from the sufferings of this world." Some say that Akbar had placed his hands upon his chest. As Hussein wished to move his hands, Akbar says, "Oh father, allow my hands to be." Hussein realizes that there's a dagger in the heart of Akbar. Akbar breathes his last. Hussein calls on the Hashimis, "Help me to take your brother back." As Hussein is taking back Akbar, Sakina runs. She says, "Oh father, where is my brother Aliun al-Akbar? Your brother has been killed, O child." Sakina beats her face and cries out. Hussein says, "Oh Sakina, bear it for the sake of Allah." Sakina says, "How may I bear when my brother has been taken away from me and you have been left without a son?" Matam Hussein.